Hey, how's it going, dude?
It's all right, man. How are you doing? You got that nice microphone there and
Yeah,
got the little
thanks.
blurred background and all that stuff.
Yeah, I can unblur it. Let's have a look.
Nah, it's fine. It doesn't matter.
It's
It's all good, man. I just wanted to see inside your life, man. I
yeah,
wanted to see I wanted to see what the real you was and pick up cues, do that Sherlock Holmes thing and go, "Oh, so he's into Monet, Impressionism." But his couch is really messy. I actually have a long-standing joke with one gal that I was doing mock interviews for her to get into Google and Meta, and she actually ended up getting into Meta, and she had this couch in the background that was all messy, and it became like an inside joke between us. I'm like, oh, I noticed the couch is clear now.
yeah, it's really important. So the reason I've still got a blurry background is I have recently purchased a Cybernaut Club sign, but it's too big for this wall behind me. So compared to where the camera is, this room that I'm in is very small. So I have to do a complete change round to sort of accommodate the sign. And
So let me just understand this. When you ordered it, you did figure this all out first before you ordered this.
I have exceptional attention to detail. However, I am an optimist, and I tend to think that things are bigger than they may seem.
So, well, size matters, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I've been
in your
told a few
face, right?
times. I've let down many an ex-lover.
That's great. So tell me about Cybernaut. I've watched some of the. I think I've maybe watched one or two, but I've seen your posts and stuff going on.
Yeah.
And tell me how you started this up and why you have so many connection requests that are so popular. I feel like I'm back in high school and I'm not part of the popular clique.
Well, I don't know about that. Like, I don't have many subscribers yet. Come on, guys, subscribe. Let's go.
Exactly.
Yeah, I need 1,000.
Pound the subscribe.
Hit that button. Like I need yeah, I need 1,000 before I can quit my job.
There you go. Yeah.
But no, that still won't be enough to live off.
No, that's not it. That's funny. It's like I live in Silicone Valley, right? So if you win the lottery, I don't know, maybe it's 20 million or something, you can't retire. Well, first of all, 40% of it goes to taxes, but above and beyond that, you have to it has to be like hundreds of millions of dollars.
You guys are missing out, because here in the UK, if you win the lottery, that's all tax free. So if you win 20 or 40
well,
million,
it better be, because you're already paying 80% taxes on everything else.
Well, it's not just that we pay 80% tax. We just, they tax the air, the light, the heat, everything. If you want to be alive, you got to pay taxes, unless you're an animal, and then then you're either going to be eaten.
Well, come on, there's got to be fines and penalties and permits for the animals, right?
Unless you're a bird, and then you can just go wherever you want. However, I often wonder, especially around here, like there's a bush in my next door neighbor's garden, and it's full of like hundreds of sparrows. Like every day they sit there, they tweet, like they're living life. And whatever sparrows do.
That Elon Musk.
And they don't go anywhere. Like they chill there, or they nick food from the feeders in my back garden. But like if I was a bird, I'd be off. Like I'd be going somewhere else. I don't understand it. Like seagulls, they say.
Oh, it's the viral effect. It's the network effect.
And then you have like other birds, like swallows, who just take the mick, and they just go as far as they want. And it, and then you've got to think, could a swallow carry a coconut? Like.
There you go. Well, they just released drone deliveries are happening in the States now. So they're actually I guess it's for maybe small like pharmaceutical things, not drugs, but like kind of things like that. So it's taken off. Drone world is here. You know what
Whoa.
my thought was, you know how everyone's got like, it's the Truman Report, right? Or the Truman Story or Truman Life, whatever that is. You know how everyone's like selfies and all this.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just think we're all going to have our own personal drone. It'll be in a
yeah.
certain airspace, right? And it'll do everything for you. It'll record everything that you go. It'll be your security. It'll do all this stuff, like this sort of assistant, like a drone assistant, right?
Yeah.
And I just think it'll be like we'll just be able to walk, and we'll have movies of our lives, and then that'll be the real push to get into the metaverse, which is where you can actually
Mm.
be many different characters, genders, races, cultures, and what
Species.
have you, right? And they have exactly species, and you're going to have several lives, right? But there'll be in the real life will become actually kind of this really weird concept because it'll all be filmed. So is it real life? you
Don't
know,
know.
is this the
It's
real life? Is it just
yeah.
fantasy?
Yeah.
Caught
Nothing
in a
really
nightmare.
matters. Anyone can see.
No, exactly. I'm sorry. Actually, you were telling me something that we kind of riffed off
What was I
onto the
talking about?
lottery. What were you talking about? Something about
Sparrows?
no, it
Um,
was before the sparrows. I forgot. You had a point there, and it was something about you pay a lot of tax. I diverted you on that.
oh yeah, because yeah, basically birds don't pay taxes, so it's better
Right.
to be a bird.
Mm.
I think that was
But
ultimately
before
the
that, I think
point.
it was your subscribers, and can't make the right, hit the subscribers, the
Yeah, yeah,
money,
yeah.
then all that
So
kind of stuff.
I need 1,000 in order to become some sort of income generate
Well, how far are we
income
away
generate.
from that, Paul?
Ooh, I'm on about 156 right now. So
156.
yeah.
What is that? Log 10? What logarithm? Because you could actually make a case for.
Yeah, yeah, 156 subscribers, and all of them
But
genuine.
log 3, so it's actually 4,300.
I've been approached by many people from India and other places, and they say, "Hey, your channel's great, but you don't have many subscribers. I can do this, and this for you."
We can bot
Um,
you.
yeah, and then I was like, no, all of those things that you've just described are against the terms and conditions of the channel, so I'm just gonna leave it. Um, yeah, so yeah, the metaverse is it's on its way, but will it be as successful as Meta hopes it will be?
I think well, okay, so that's a sort of two-part question. Okay, so one thing is it Meta that's going to bring the metaverse? I've always kind of, and I like Meta. I'm literally on the other side of Dumbarton Bridge from Meta, right? So I mean, they're like within stone's throw. They're neighbors, they're family.
Yeah,
But the biggest challenge they've always had as Facebook, as Meta, is they don't own the vertical distribution, which of course Apple does, right? And I would say Apple and Microsoft are probably in positions to actually create this metaverse. I think you got to look at gaming, right? I
yeah,
think gaming will be, hope this isn't the wrong thing to say. Okay, porn made the internet. Okay,
yeah.
so maybe gaming will make the metaverse, or maybe porn will make the metaverse as well.
It might.
And what's that?
Yeah, it might.
It might, right?
Well,
This,
it'll
it's
definitely.
all tongue in cheek aside. I mean, that
Yeah, yeah,
porn made the internet. I mean, that
yeah,
basically that is what gave it. But gaming, so porn may make the metaverse, but gaming will build the infrastructure. Gaming will be the picks and shovels, right?
yeah,
It'll
yeah.
create the picks and shovels. So that's what's happening now. If you look at like the blockchain, DeFi, cryptocurrency, and stuff like that, yeah, it's a ripe industry. Financial industry is ripe to be disrupted. Napster, as we call it
Mm.
here. And however, I think a lot of what you see now is back to like the dot-com era of 2000, where you don't really see any of those companies, but the rudimentary infrastructure of it is here, and then it took off, right? The thing is kind of ironic of all this, and sorry, I'm kind of bouncing around. That's kind of how I do
No,
it.
it's
It's kind
fine.
of bouncing
Yeah,
around
it's
the
good.
room. The ironic thing that I find, like cryptocurrency, right? It's supposed to be DeFi, right? Democratization, decentral, but how the 1% owns all the wealth in the world?
Yeah,
Everybody combined, there's not even like half of what they own. Only 1%, the 1% owns cryptocurrency. So
Yeah,
how
yeah.
decentralized is that, right? Kind of thing. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think for the metaverse, yes, I think it will happen. I think we will move to these type of places and these type of experiences, and it will be probably initially through a gaming or entertainment. That could be just sort of entertainment experiences or just experiencing, and then uh, um, and of course porn, right? But if you ever get a chance to see, there's a movie came out in I think the 80s called Brainstorm. I think it's called Brainstorm with Christopher Walken, and it was where they were putting these devices on, and they could record the actual feeling that somebody was having, right?
Yeah.
And so of course, you know, in the construct of the movie, the military gets in because they want to control and inflict pain, all that stuff. But what happens, not to ruin the movie, but one of the scientists puts it on just as she's about to die. So of course, Christopher Walken puts that on there and begins to see what's on the other side, kind of
Oh,
thing, right?
wow.
But anyway, see that movie, because I think that is truly, when that happens and we can create that kind of experience, then I think overall, yes, we will be having that. What'll be interesting as well as, you know, I expect companies like Google are working on the contact lens version of all of this, right? So you really won't know. I mean, if you put the little Geordie eye things
Yeah,
on, you'll
yeah.
have an idea. If Google Glass had that problem, right? Whatever. There you go. He's got it.
I've
But
still got these on.
yeah. So I think what I also like is what Scott Galloway well, I love that one. Scott Galloway talks about like dispersion. I think this removing the middle person, the middleman, so to speak, where D2C, right? Direct to customer, creators directly to their fans. You know, you only need 1,000 fans. That's right. If you get your 1,000 fans, you get your 1,000 things, you take off. And you'll be able to create content and they will be rewarded. And economically, this will happen. And then one other aspect, and then I'll kind of throw it to you because I'm curious on your thoughts, is economies,
Yeah.
plural. There will be economies of stuff going on. And yeah, I love technology. So to me, this stuff's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not scared of it or worry. Yeah, there's bad downsides, of course. I'm not naive, but I just think one of the things that was proposed to me by somebody is, can you imagine how this will break down the barriers of prejudice, right? So think about it. You know, there's a lot of LGBT prejudice and all that kind of stuff, right? Can you imagine if you were in an avatar in
Yeah.
another world where you were, say, a female, or you were, I don't know what, transgender, whatever it is,
Yeah.
right?
Or a
You know,
lizard or a
or
walking
lizard
lion or something.
or
Yeah.
a Chinese or, you know, whatever. And, you know, if you're these different things, and that may be able to give you a great conception. However, one thought I always had, and I know I was going to let you jump in, but, you know, obviously I like to talk about myself. I like
Yeah,
to hear
let's
myself
go.
talk. However, I would always had a thing when I was growing up, you know, when we went to the moon, I always thought astronauts truly should be like the real peace of mind gurus of the world, to be able to come out and really have this perspective. And they do, but then they come back here and they haven't made a movement change, right? So I
Yeah.
wonder if we go into these other worlds, will we really be able to affect many different things? Or is it like AI, it just will embed our prejudices and biases? So
Mm.
I pass it to you because
Yeah.
I think I've
So
talked enough.
there's a lot to unpack there.
Mm,
Yeah, and maybe we can come back to some of the pitfalls and the dangers of these technologies a little bit later on.
sure.
So yeah, I mean, if you look at the trend in films, like from the early 90s till now, you can think of things like the Lawnmower Man. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
Yep.
where this person's intelligence was upgraded by their integration into VR, and there was some sort of download of intelligence and information going into that person that made him godlike. And then you go to Johnny Mnemonic with Keanu Reeves after that, where he used his brain as a hard drive, which meant that he had to lose what he classed as useless information, which was his childhood, to fill up that space. And then only,
fundamental building blocks of your character, but
and then,
apart from that,
I
therapy went
recently,
right out the window.
yeah, I recently rewatched that film, Johnny Mnemonic, and it is terrible. Like it is dated really badly. And then only I think it's 2 years later or 3 years later, The Matrix came out. So he went from like Johnny Mnemonic to The Matrix, and then The Matrix that started to, I think actually that started a a revolution in people's minds. It made people consider, are we in a simulation for the first time? It made people think, what is the possibilities of my life and my existence, and what can I be? What can I do? What can I achieve? And as that came out, there was also the takeoff of personal computers in everybody's home, and the millennium, and then ubiquitous computing everywhere, and then mobile phones. And now we're in a stage where we spend most of our time online. Not everybody, but a lot of people do, and especially like younger generations or people from like Gen X below spend a hell of a lot of time online. And yeah, it's like, where is it all going? Where is this taking us? And if we use technology like the Neuralink, and then plug ourselves directly into the internet, and where we don't have to interface using our hands, or even our voice, and we have the information there straight away.
Totally makes sense. There's precedence for it. I mean, we had to get up and change the channel on the TV, then we clicked it, and now we just voice.
Yeah.
Next is thought, right? I mean, that evolution of technology, or the product roadmap, if you will, totally makes sense.
It definitely does make sense. And I remember a time when you might be in a bar or a pub, like you might be with an older relative, and then a conversation will spark up, and people will they won't have any answers, but they'll make stuff up that sounds like an answer to a question. Oh, I wonder, what happened with Genghis Khan back in the, I don't know, whatever it is. And they go, oh yes, well, this happened, that happened. But now you've got a thing in your pocket, and you can go, well, actually, that's BS, because this is what actually happened. But imagine having that access to that without having to reach for the phone, that the information is there.
Right. It's already in there.
Would that limit conversation? Like, would you even have a question?
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Well, also you have to question the veracity of that information and data.
Yeah.
By the way, when you're talking about movies and that area of that, the funniest thing to me is, I think like the most revolutionary, groundbreaking was the 1960s Star Trek TV. I mean, it gave us the flip phone, AirPods, tablet, 60 years ago, Paul. 60 years ago, right? So that's one piece. The other part I thought was funny about what you said, not funny in a ha-ha way, but I always find this amazing, because I think here's a $1 billion app idea, by the way. So you know how the internet, most people don't know why the internet was actually started, but the idea was, this was during the Cold War, and the idea was, if we did nuclear annihilation, basically, if we had completely, how would we restart the world? So the idea was, let's connect up all the universities, all the research areas together, so that we'd have the information to somehow start again, which, by the way, it was designed, as you used the word correctly, ubiquitous. So you put stuff on the internet,
it was
right?
DARPANET, wasn't it?
It was a DARPANET, right? And then you have search stuff on the internet, and it's ubiquitous, right? So here's the app. You have an app where Paul goes and says, absolutely scrub every single thing about me, every single place, anywhere on the internet, and then I can choose to manage it, delete it, keep it, store it, block it out, right? That is a $1 billion app, dude, and you heard it here first, Paul.
But that's like that was like what Catwoman was after with in the Dark Knight Rises. She was after that sort of program where she could have a fresh start. I think it was called the Fresh Start app, and Batman was like, there's no such thing, like it doesn't exist. And
it's entirely possible, because it's ubiquitous. You set it up initially to be ubiquitous. So it's interesting. I think you're right. Conversation, so text is getting less, right? We are more mesmerized by images, you
Or
know,
video, yeah,
and
yeah.
our image attention span has gone down. You know, they did a study and they said boomers, right, which are probably, you know, people that you would assume have the best attention span compared to maybe you know, millennials or Gen Z. In a workplace, 3 minutes is
Really.
the attention span for a boomer. 3 minutes. Now think of that. It's got to be way less than that in a TikTok world, right? So to your point, maybe we're having conversations, but maybe they're a lot like, um, I don't know, maybe they're not as deep. Maybe we're becoming shallow, which is why Lady Gaga sang that song. There was a meaning behind it.
I often like every now and then I think about what it must have been like before electricity and before before technology, and I think of people who would be in these stately homes together, and they might have had a drawing room and a piano, and they may have had some books, and those people typically probably wouldn't work, because they would be wealthy, they would have servants look after them. How bored would they have been? Like, what would they do?
Or more contemplative, more critical
Yeah, yeah,
thinking, the things that are lacking in this world. They spent
yeah.
more time philosophically thinking about things and more deeply getting into it. So you have on that end, and then so the question you're asking is it a yin yang, right? Do you
Mm.
have this like incredible long time to be critical thinking and contemplative, right? And you now have such distraction.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, are they one and the same? Actually, is there like some
I
connection there?
I personally feel definitely more distracted now than probably when I was a kid, and that should be the opposite. I should be more focused now as an adult, but I
You
find
would think.
myself being pulled in loads of different directions all at the same time.
So
Um,
think about
mm,
this. I have a friend who is actually working in the biotech that they're trying to extend life to 150 years. So take the
mm,
fact that your attention span and the massive amount of input data and signals from the world is quickly, you know, making your life go faster. Now
yeah.
you have 150 years of that. So obviously you're going to have many different careers, many different marriages and relationships, families or whatever, right? I mean, just, you'd be relatively healthy in this 150 years, So
Mm.
I don't know, is that a good thing?
I don't know. Like, I was doing a bit of research about analog computers and how they might be making a comeback. And I watched a really good YouTube video about the guy who invented the first analog machine that then later kind of became the technology for an analog computer. And he spent years working out the math of the tides. So all of the different tides all around the world, all at the exact same time. And he engineered this machine, and I just think, yeah, there's no way anybody's doing that today. Like, who's got the time or the
Right.
or the money to kind of think, I wonder what makes the ocean move in such a way that, let's spend some, time, some years,
Some
like working
quality
that out.
time actually
Yeah.
getting deep into it. Funny you talk about analog. So, if you think about, so when analog came in, let's just think of like music, right? Sound, right? When analog was there, and then digital took it over, right? So digital is a sampling, and people don't realize
Yeah.
it's not real, right? I mean, it's a sampling, and it isn't authentically real, right? As you would have an analog. But if you think about, it's actually going from complexity to simplicity, from some expertise to sort of novice, right? So take it like this. I did Aikido for many years, and when you start your digital, 0, 1, 3, right? You have like these 3 points, and I
Mm.
take this and I make this move and I do this, right? It's not like it's choreographed kind of thought. Then, it's kind of like calligraphy, like Japanese calligraphy. It's very clear, and then as you begin to get better, it sort of flows. And then at the end, it looks like this thing that's like paint rolling down a sheet. It's got this form and function, but you can still pick the character out, right? So when you attack like a 9th level black belt or something like that, these masters, right, which I happened to do because I was good at taking break falls, they call them kemi. It's amazing how you feel the analog. Like when you attack them, it's all about openings, right? When you attack them, you literally feel about 20 different attacks that could happen. And at any given time, they have this ability to change the direction any way you want. So it's analog, right? You can literally, you know, it's not 1, 2, 3. It's 1.111, 1.22, 1.112. But you know, the better you get, the more that you have in this sweep. And that's what's the beauty of analog, right? This is what's lost, right? Is that really amazing, and that's that expertise that people have. And so what you're presenting is an idea and a thought that's kind of worrisome, right? Where do we go when people don't do that anymore?
Yeah.
Right. So do the AI and ML entities do that? Because they can actually do that. They could actually do it more than a human could do. Maybe. I mean, you're assuming, you know, I don't know what the, you know, it's calculus, right? You know, this is the fundamental theorem of calculus. It kind of blew my mind. Third quarter at UCLA, I was in Professor Werner's class. He looked like ET with glasses. And it took me the third quarter. You get taught in the first quarter of calculus what the fundamental theorem of calculus is. And you know, it's just this numbers and abstract. And then in that class, I remember this moment when it, bam, it hit me, right? It's basically just little rectangles. And if you take enough of them, you can do the area under a curve. You can actually do, because you know the area of a rectangle, right? But you can do an odd object or a not a linear based object by just making infinite amount of them, right? So same kind of idea with this sort of thought, right? I mean, maybe AI ML can take, maybe it'll have the ultimate expertise. Then the question is, well, then what do we do with it?
Yeah,
you know, does that take us anywhere? And what do we do in the meantime? Do we elevate to higher levels? Or maybe there's this split where some group of people will elevate to higher. If you think about getting the agricultural, revolution, we got off the farms and did less tedious work, and we were able to do other things. And then eventually we got computers and we were able to do other things, right? So there was these other, and then there was a group of people that never kind of caught on that board, right? And they kind of were sort of maybe in a different mode, right? Held back maybe, or something like that. So I'm just wondering, is that what happened?
Or maybe it was their choice, their cultural or lifestyle choice. Like if you think of travelers perhaps, or maybe sometimes they're called gypsies, where they have that off the grid lifestyle that they prefer. Yeah, I mean, could it be that humanity will split even further into the haves and the have-nots, those who are able to upgrade their genetics and their ability to integrate with the machine, and those who simply can't afford it or don't know how to? Will there be essentially two species of human, like in the future? Yeah.
Interesting.
The more and more that we integrate with machines and with AI, it's it makes you think, like in terms of fuzzy logic. Like you say you have an apple and you take a bite of an apple and you take another bite, it's still an apple. You take a bite, it's still an apple. At what point does the apple cease being an apple and starts becoming something else, becoming garbage, or becoming a core of an apple rather than an apple?
Interesting.
Like when you sprinkle some sand in the palm of your hand and you just keep going, like at what point does that become a beach? Like at what point do we become?
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
So taking that thought, where do you go with that? I mean, okay, is it important to know that transition moment? And what does that give you? What is it? What does it tell you? How do you use that, right? So I totally love what you're talking about. I love that analogy. Yes, how an apple becomes then a core, it changes this, and then it eventually, becomes trash, right? So what do we gain by knowing that?
Well, what do we become when we sign ourselves up to a Neuralink implant, and then we can interface with the internet just like it's thought? Like, then we have the question of, what are our thoughts? Like, did I request something, or was something put in there? Like,
I see what you're saying. Right. Yeah, where do I begin? Where do I end? Right.
Yeah. Where do I, like, and if you have like a multitude of people all signed up together, could we in fact create some sort of hive mind or collective?
So would you say that's what we're doing? Would you say that that's what people do when they partake in something that changes or alters their state of consciousness, whether it's drugs or alcohol or whatever, you know, or even, I don't know, excitement, right? You know, a
Yeah, it
roller
could be.
coaster, and then of course, maybe even sex, right? I mean, something that takes you into a place that is
You,
some sort of transition, and there's a
yeah.
melding of something, right? So we're trying to achieve that, right? Or you could even say binging on Netflix at some point takes you some
Mm.
other place, right? So there seems to be a function of that in our life, or
It's almost like an
purpose,
elevated version of being part of a tribe, isn't it? Like in a way,
right?
like so when everybody was watching Tiger King on Netflix, you're all part of that same sort of consciousness and that conversation in the zeitgeist. But then if you had that just on a level of thought in your mind, and you could interact in metaverse chat rooms without even accessing a mobile phone or a computer, then you're becoming part of the collective thought of all of those
Yeah,
connected
so
minds.
here's the thing about that. I remember reading this guy, Ken Wilber. He wrote this, he's a philosopher. He wrote this thing, I only remember one part of it. Always trying to find it because, you know, everything's on the internet. It should be. Um, but his concept was in, you know, we're in an ocean, right? And we become a ripple, sort of a little wave out of that ocean,
Mm.
right? That identifies who we are differently. But our strive then is to become, again, we seek this ultimate meaning. The moment we do, we no longer exist.
Mm.
You see that?
Yeah.
So that was always fascinating. So we're in this really interesting struggle or conflict, if you will, or I don't know what it is. It's this, you know, the state of like, you know, we're something different, but we want to understand the ultimate
Mm.
thing. So maybe, Paul, never ask what is the meaning of life, what is the ultimate
Yeah.
meaning, because
Yeah.
once you do, you no longer exist,
Yeah.
right?
Once you
It's almost
realize,
like you end.
it's almost like the battle between communism and individualism as well. Like it's the same sort of thing. Like you might have a need like internally to be part of a family or a tribe or a group or a society, but then also you have this need to be an individual as well, and it's finding the balance between the two where the individual doesn't destroy the group and the group doesn't destroy the individuals. Yeah, we're getting very
Interesting.
philosophical.
We're getting
Anyway,
very philosophical. Why
yeah.
I lived in Japan, and it was all about the harmony and we. It was always the collective, right? Is more important than the individual. So I had that experience, and then you come here. You know, it's interesting. So Japan is less freedom but more safety, and America is more freedom, less safety.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's an interesting balance, and then maybe there's some place that should actually have more of both of them. I know you come back from America, from Japan, and you're like, why is America not this safe? You know, but then everyone has an opinion. See, this is the interesting thing. You
Mm.
know, the moment you have freedom, you're definitely crunching on somebody else's, but by definition, right? I mean,
could
it just
could
has to
be
happen.
could be
Well, no, it has to. I mean, just think about it. So, say freedom of speech, right? If I have the ability to say something and have that freedom, obviously it's going to have an effect on somebody else. So, it's not an individual sort of in a bubble type
but
situation. So,
because you have that freedom of speech doesn't mean that necessarily anybody else will be offended. Like it
not
doesn't.
necessary, but there are cases that are, right? So I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
saying, so
yeah.
obviously the ones that aren't, you don't have to worry about that. But let's just say if I have a freedom to do what I want, or a freedom, I choose to do a freedom, that
Mm.
could impinge upon somebody else's life, right? It could have an effect.
Yeah,
Therefore, they don't have freedom. Right. So
yeah,
so people don't understand this concept, right? So everyone, this is kind of having this outrage of what's happening now, where everyone's like, okay, you know, with that whole thing with the pandemic and mass and this and that kind of thing. It's like, oh no, it's my right and all this kind of stuff. But then the collective, right? Okay, so you know, you're coughing away, and there's somebody here who's, you know, older, maybe frail, or maybe has some health issues.
mm.
Yeah, you're having your freedom, you're calling free, but where's your responsibility to that? See, that's the big
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Personal responsibility is, along with critical thinking, is very much lacking, I think, you know, and that's
Mm.
what people don't want. This is, I find, you find this in business, right?
How do
Everybody
we
loves
how do
to
we get
take
back
pot
to that
shots.
though?
Yeah, well, everyone loves to take pot shots at management, right?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and I've been in executive management, and I get it, right? But none of them want the responsibility,
Mm,
right? You know, the moment you're like, okay, great, you're the manager now, you take the responsibility. You're the buck, you know, you don't have somebody above you. Now the buck ends at you. All of a sudden they're like, oh, no, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want the
yeah.
responsibility. Well, okay, you know, it's, it makes
It's
sense. But anyway, you were asking, how do we get back
yeah,
to that?
like
That's
how do we get back to a place of personal responsibility for individuals? Like, where does that begin? Does that begin at home with parents? Like, what if those parents don't have that education to pass that on to their children? Is that then the state's responsibility? But then is that too strict of you know, like a governmental control to say this is how you should behave, this is how you should act, this is how you
Well,
sort out your
I don't
personal
think so,
responsibility?
right? I mean, obviously, that's kind of a sort of setup question because think of it this way, right? You can't force it. So let's say you have a low performing employee, right? And
Mm.
you do what's called a PIP, a performance improvement plan, right?
This is
So the way
brilliant
I
because
like to do,
sorry to interrupt you. This is actually amazing because I'm doing an assignment right now on this exact subject. So keep talking. This is great.
so here's how I do a PIP, right? I generally will sit down with somebody, and I don't like to be Moses from the mountain. Basically, I'll say to them, okay, Paul, you know, we've got these issues. We've defined out what the issues are. You clearly say, okay, so Paul, you're managing Paul. What would you do? Write your PIP. Okay.
Mm,
So what I find is two things happen with that. One is they have buy-in, right? Because it's their ideas, right? Their decision. And second of all, like I said, they own it, right? As well. Okay. So what happens is you go off and you do it. So you sink or swim, right? If you sink, right, then you come back. Okay. If you swim, fine, wonderful.
mm,
Great, you know, you did it yourself, you were able to pull yourself together, you know, wonderful. Okay, you sink, you come back. And so what we do is Paul, you know, so Paul was managing Paul, and they kind of went through where did these things go wrong. You have a kind of a different idea, maybe a different perspective now you put it into head. Sure, okay, well, let's do that once again. Let's have Paul manage Paul. I Once again, sink or swim. I can guarantee you the third time a few things happen. One is either we look at each other and go, this is a miscast, it's not a fit, and there's a
mm,
separation.
mm.
Okay, it's not good for you, but it's all understood, right? It's not, you know, you were involved in it, right? Or Paul says, okay, I tried it my way. I need your guidance. I need your direction. And now I'm more open to it, right? Okay,
Yeah,
let's do it my way this time. Now, that may still not work, but then we can get to that other stage, right? So I guess my point is by you doing your PIP, you are taking personal responsibility for yourself and you're not being forced. So if I came and said, Paul, this is what you're going to do. I don't want to
yeah,
hear it. This
yeah.
is what you're going to do. I'm going to dictate and mandate this. You
Mm,
boom, 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 boom. Okay. Some people may, okay, I'm worried about my job, I'm worried about this kind of thing, and you do it. But I'm guessing it's not sticking, okay? It's not something that's incorporated. It's not doing a paradigm. Change management has to come from the fact that people really want to change, right? And if you are just giving me lip
mm.
service and you'll just do it, it's going to come back up, right? That's why I don't believe, you know, dictating it from above is the best way to do it. Now you do
Yeah,
have to do certain things, right? I mean, obviously, if it's something is very dangerous, you have to come in there. But then, you know, maybe you have to explain it. And this is what happens when you raise a child, right? At some point, you know, a lot of points actually, probably more so more recently than what most parents are doing. And it's not a slight on parents because you know what, you know, from the peanut gallery, it's great. I mean, I have a daughter, so you know, I'm a parent, right? But everyone has their own situations. But you know, you have to let your kids learn things because guess what? Your kid is going to learn it by doing. Okay, you need to. That's very unsteady. You should need to get off that. Yeah. Right. You get say,
yeah,
bam. Okay. Ah. Okay.
yeah,
Okay. So, what did we learn here? I wasn't
yeah.
just being a jerk, right? Okay, you got it. You felt it. Okay, so you want to have a sort of a safety net, but the safety net can't be so close to them and see it. If the safety net's so there, anything's to go, right? This is what
Yeah,
happened with the banks in the 2008 crash, right? They learned nothing.
yeah.
It took us down to the 2000 global crash, and then the year and a half later, they were getting the biggest bonuses they ever had. What did they learn? There are no
Nothing.
rules. There are no
Yeah.
responsibilities. So I don't know if I answered that question, but how do you look at like incorporating personal responsibility and discipline and,
Mm.
and commitment, these are things. I mean, I've been a CrossFitter for 14 years. I think that states, I may be an outlier on the Gaussian curve, right? That I am somebody who does take discipline. But by the way, it doesn't make me better then. It's probably my OCD, right? I mean, just like, okay, I have this, or maybe the way I was raised or something like that. I don't know what it is, but I have this common mentality of 365 minus 1 is 0. And then I have to restart, right? So if I'm committed to do something, let's say over a year,
Yeah.
and I let it ride, right? Then it's not that I'm bound to like 364 and I still get, but no, I lose all of that and I have to start again, right?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But I don't know that a lot of people have that mentality.
No, it's well, I'm not. Maybe some people are born with that mentality, or maybe some people who are disadvantaged and have to fight for things that they don't have from an early age, or they're put up against extreme challenges from an early age. They
Sure.
tend to develop that mindset, and you might find a lot of those people are very incredibly successful later in life. Sometimes those challenges could overwhelm the person.
That's why Roger Waters was able to write The Wall.
Yeah, yeah. Or
right? I mean, if you look at that, how he was, probably what happened. That's autobiographical, right? So I get you. I agree with that. Okay, so that's again outliers, right?
Yeah,
so let's get to the Gaussian curve.
Sure.
Let's get to the middle section.
Yeah, I don't really have an answer for that. I have a personal answer, and that's maybe I wouldn't class myself as incredibly successful, but I definitely do things that other people tell me is weird. Like I would get up early, work out every morning, make sure I'm taking vitamins, make sure I'm looking after myself. I'm doing this podcast. I'm always doing CPD and extra courses that I don't have to. I'm always trying to improve and trying to, it's just.
So how do you take that and incorporate it into how do you make the common remarkable, right? And I know by definition, if the common become remarkable, you have no common, but it's not that. You want to move this Gaussian curve, right? So you're always going to have a distribution like this. The idea isn't to get everybody as an outlier. The idea is to move en masse so that everybody is an improvement along the line. So how do you get the people that don't have what you and I kind of have, this sort of thing? How do you incorporate that? By the way, that's another billion-dollar app. I used to work with a friend of mine. We were going to make a lifestyle app where, the routine, habit, and then it becomes a lifestyle. It becomes a lifestyle where all of a sudden it kind of, you don't think about it. So for example, I do intermittent fasting, right?
Yeah, me too.
Actually, I don't even say I do intermittent fasting anymore. That's how I eat, right? I do 16-8, 16 hours of not eating and 8 hours of eating, right? It didn't start that way, but now it's my lifestyle, right? And I have a long-term goal. I mean, this is why nutrition is more important than diet. This is why training is more important than working out. Each working out and diet have this sort of short-lived goal and target. You're there, you're done, right? Nutrition is till you die, right? Training is until you die. That's why I love my favorite CrossFit one, train not to suck at life, right? Kind of I love that one. So you know what I'm saying? So I agree. I think right. So you're in that mode.
How long have you been doing that for? The intermittent
CrossFit?
fasting and
Intermittent fasting is about 2.5 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started it not as recently or not as long as like CrossFit or whatever like that, but I just did. I was sitting next to this guy on a flight coming back from LA, and we just struck up a conversation, and it was really interesting. I think it was from LA, or maybe it was going to LA. I can't remember, but anyway, that's not pertinent. But he talked about this intermittent fasting because I talked about CrossFit. And this funny thing is, people think CrossFit, right? What do they think about? Lifting weights and flipping tires and all this stuff. Do you know what the basic, in the pyramid of the foundation of the program is? It's nutrition.
Right.
And in fact, what happens is, this is very interesting. I mean, CrossFit is fascinating in this. I mean, just the way it was thought out and philosophically put together. But anyway, generally you'll start, it's like the executive summary of working out. I mean, you will very short, very intense, very concise, worked out by math. It's increased work capacity over broad time and modal domains. What does that mean? Work equals force times distance over time. You want to increase your work, increase your force, lift more, or your distance. or do that same force and distance, that same weight, that same distance, and less time. Right. And this is how they do it. And then you increase your capacity to do it. Right. So what happens is in the first 6 months, people love it or hate it. Once again, commitment, desire to do it. There's also community, which ties it in, which is a big piece. But anyway, that aside, within 6 months, you will see visibly. I mean, you will not only your body, but you'll feel better. And then as you continue to do it for, say, 9 months, a year, or 2 years, at that point, you begin to go, I need to dial in my nutrition to have better performance, because you can physically feel it, right? You can physically feel it, right? So my point being is that you need to do something to the point where the intrinsic value that you're getting is what motivates you, right? So initially, just do it, right? Dogmatically, just do it. Okay, whether you like it or not, just do it. Stick with it for a week, day by day if you need to, whatever, rep by rep. What does it matter? Okay. Then there's a point where you finally begin to see, hey, these results. And then you have this comparison thing, right? Okay, I can go eat this crap, right? And this is a fascinating thing. You can take somebody who doesn't work out, eats incredibly well. You could take somebody who works out all the time, eats crap. This person is healthier.
Yeah.
Fitter, healthier.
Sure.
Okay. So anyway, point being is you build this up, right? So the up until that transition of intrinsic, it's kind of like the point of inflection, 1/x, right? So that point of inflection where it goes this, and then that point of inflection goes this way, right? So I think it's 1/x, function of x of 1/y or something like that. If you do your trigonometry or calculus, can't remember. It's been a while. But anyway, that point of inflection is initially it's all about compounding small little incrementals until it becomes critical mass to the transition of where now it's just what I do. And then you will have moments, because everyone's on a cheat day, right? In my mind, you and I probably have cheated to this point in our lives enough for this life, the next life, the life after that. So do we really have a justification or validation for that cheat? Probably not. Well, but anyway,
I was going to say, so earlier on in the week, I think Tuesday, it was my youngest daughter's first birthday. So my wife made it. Thanks. My wife made
to her, not you, by the way.
Yeah. my wife made a birthday cake for her. Okay. So, I'm doing the intermittent fasting, and I'm trying to do 1 meal a day and carnivore diet / keto. So I'm sticking with.
Oh my God, a lot of stuff. By the way, I wouldn't recommend that.
No,
I'll give you my recommend. No. Start with intermittent fasting. That in and of itself, and do 16/8. 16 hours of fasting, and then 8 hours. Whenever you stop eating, if it's 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night, you do 16 hours, and that's when you break the fast. By the way, when you break your fast, I always break my fast the same way. It is a plate of carrots, sandwich meat, one sandwich meat, cheese, some fruit, celery with peanut butter. That's it. I do that same thing. So I break my fast with good. By the way, this is the craziest thing about breakfast, right? What do people do? I mean, I don't know. In America, this is your breakfast, right? So you've just had, I don't know, 8, 6, 7 out, whatever, a long period of time of fasting, and they hit it with cereal, oatmeal, carbs, right? It's like, oh my God, right? So it should be a balanced break. Okay. No, do this first, because I've heard people do this before, where they're, I'm going to do keto, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Okay. Too much freaking stuff, in my opinion. Okay. And by the way, it's really weird, because when you talk about nutrition, it's almost like religion. People get very dogmatic about it. So I never force it, but this is my strong suggestion. Just do the intermittent fasting first. Just do the 16. Don't eat crap and then the 8 hours, but just do that. Then add another element. You know what? I'm just going to go carnivorous or something, or then I'm just going to do the keto, because it's too much and then that's what will derail you.
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead. So I just wanted to.
I understand. So so the cake is around, and my weight is on a downward trend. Everything's going great. I'm consistently losing weight every day since January. I've done 1 extra rep, so I think today is day 98 of the year. So
nice.
So I did 100 anyway, because normally,
speaking of which, you ever do the 100 the burpee challenge? You do. This is a great one to do, by the way. You do one. You know what a burpee is, right? Squat, down, jump up, like that thing, right? You know a burpee. Anyway, you can Google it. on day one, you do one. On day two, you do two. On day three, you do three, all the way up to 100. When you get around the 80s every day, that's a freaking workout.
That's the point that I'm at now, where I'm like, I'm doing 100 reps with these barbells, and you know, I've worked up to that point.
That's quite a lot.
Yeah, and it's you know, I do them in sets of 20, so I do 20.
Okay.
I do 5 times 20, and you know, so I have a little rest.
Still a lot.
Yeah,
depending on the weight.
Yeah, it's I can't remember what I've got on there. I'll send you a picture later.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that every day since January. The weight's been going down, been dropping consistently. Then the birthday cake comes out, and then today I'm back up 2 kilos off like a few slices
from
of cake.
the birthday cake. Oh my god! Yeah,
like because
that's the thing, isn't that amazing? So you work out 3 months, right? You're in good shape. Take 1 week off.
Yeah,
you are like 3 minus 1. 3 months minus 1 week. It's amazing how fast it'll do that.
Yeah.
So you just have to keep it up, and it gets worse when you get older, by the way. Just to give you the shape of things to come.
I know. I mean, that's why I think I turned 40 in December, and that's why I think I've
That's
really,
why you went into and said, hey, it's time to, it's a milestone,
paradigm
shift.
I had that thought in my 30s, you know, as I was approaching 30, like as soon as I hit 27, I was like, oh man, I'm going to be 30 soon. So I got down to like a nice weight, but I'm kind of like this all the time, like a yo-yo. You know, you find that like comfortability, or you get busy,
lack
or
of
you get
inconsistency, right? You know, I hate to give you a shape of things to come, but I'm going to, because, you know, in Japanese, senpai, right, which is your senior, senpai means the one that came before you. Okay, so that's what senpai means, right? And when you hit about 45, okay, a couple of different things happen when you hit 40, right? Number one, up until that time, years pass by in ones, you know, 37, 38. When you hit 40, they pass by in fives. And by the way, my mom's 92, and she says actually it even gets faster when you're 70. So it goes by tens at that point. So you're screeching down the thing. Second thing is 45. I think it's about 45. The warranty on your body is over. It's done. Everything just starts falling apart completely. And then in the 50s, so last year I decided to do 6 days a week of working out. Now that's like divided up between like some CrossFit workouts, whatever. I did active rest, which is like a 1.5 hour bike ride and a 10K row, right? I have a rower, you know, kind of thing. I call those active rest.
Dude,
I rounded into this.
Fit.
So yeah, well, I'm telling you, my takeaway at the end of the year was I'm too old for this. I need recovery. Okay. So actually rounding into this year, I'm beginning to feel, it's always later, right? This is what they call DOMS, right? I have like a month DOMS, right? Is a delayed onset of muscular soreness or whatever. That's what DOMS is. So when you're young and you work out, you feel it the next day. When you're older, you feel it 3 days later, which is a real mind screw, because the problem is you're like, what did I do yesterday at my back? Or meanwhile, you did like deadlifts 2 days ago, right? 3 days ago, and you don't remember that. And that's the reason your back is it's later.
I'm like that today with my neck. I'm like, oh, my neck is a bit sore today.
Anyway, keep at it, man. I like that you added one. Do the burpee challenge. That's a good one. 100-day burpee challenge. That's a good one. But what happens though is your volume. Your volume gets to such a point. You have to. I think it's great to do that incremental growth, but cap it. Cap it somewhere, and then change. This is the great thing about CrossFit. CrossFit is constantly varied. You always are changing. So what I would always do with strength stuff is I would do 3, 3, 3, 3, 3 of everything. You know, squats and push press, whatever, deadlift, whatever, right? And then I would do maybe fives, and then I would do 5, 5, 3, 3, 1 on reps, and then I would do 20 reps. By the way, if you ever look at this guy, Mark Ripito, funniest guy. Look up quotes of Mark Ripito. He's a power lifter kind of guy, right? There's this great line about doing a 20 rep squat. What you basically do with the 20 rep squat program is you take your 5 rep max. Let's just do easy numbers, okay? Sorry, I have to do pounds. You guys do pounds too, so I'm good, not kilos.
So we do kilos,
Right. So I got to do it in pounds, right? So let's say Paul's 5 rep max is 200 pounds, okay? So what you do is you minus 70 pounds. So you're down to 130, okay? And then twice a week, you're going to do a 20 rep set, okay? So on the first day, you do 130 pounds. By the way, when you take it off the rack, you do your 20 reps. You can't re-rack it. You re-rack it, you got to start over again. Okay, so you have to do your 20. You take as much time as you want, but you have to do the 20 reps. Okay, then, so let's say Monday and Thursdays you do it. So Thursday you do 130, 135, 140, 145, 150, 150. Okay, what happens is when you get to pretty much closer to probably around about 180 or 185, right? When you're getting close to your 5 rep and you're doing 20 reps, oh boy. And he has a great, I should bring up the quote, but it's something like, if you do a really good 20 rep, a real 20 rep program, or yeah, to do a real 20 rep program, you know, you will be invoking Jesus's name. And then when you finally hit the last set, Jesus will ask to work in with you. Something like that. It's hilarious. You got to look him up. It's cool. It's just really funny, but it's true. You get to like rep 13. And then from there on, it's like 1 rep maxes all the way up to 20. But it'll make you fitter and stronger than you cannot imagine, right? So anyway, long-winded roundabout way of saying keep with it, but I wouldn't go beyond that many unless you're really going very, very light. But you know, 100 some reps, you know, to build leanness and to build muscle. You really need to do heavier weights, smaller reps, even like 3 reps or something like that. So it's all what you want to do. That being said, the fact that you're getting off your butt off of a couch, and by the way, are you standing now?
No, I'm sat down actually. Yeah, I
Dude,
know.
I've been standing for 7 years, man.
Really?
It's great. Great for your posture.
Yeah.
Great for your. By the way, you got to make sure you do the thing of the right height, whatever. Your posture. You're burning calories. It's tough on a heavy squat day, though, I have to admit. Your legs are like, oh God, my legs.
So do you do all of your computer work stood up, like for the past 7 years?
Pretty much, yeah. More recently, because of the 6 days a week last week, I've actually had to sit a little bit. But yeah, no, for last 7 years, this is a funny story. When I first started 7 years ago at the company that I was running, I was running the Japanese subsidiary here in Silicone Valley, and I was the one, you know, standing at my desk. When I left, like 4 years later, I've been at that company for 20 years, but when I left 4 years after starting my standing, 70% of the people were standing at their desk. You know, so it makes all the difference, dude. You got to do it.
At work, I've asked my boss for a standing desk, and they say no. They refuse.
That's when you start going, Attica, Attica, Attica. That's bizarre, because most of the time in a lot of these countries, I'm sure, you know, England is pretty much like that. The UK is like that. You know, here you have so many ergometrics and OSHA stuff, right? And workplace, whatever. I can't imagine. You know what I did? I mean, I was like, you know, DIY, right? Do it yourself. I just got a box. And I put like a piece of wood on it. I just did it. And then finally, people are like, okay, well, I think maybe you're really doing this. Why don't you get like this little stand? And now I've got the little VVVB things. You know, why don't you just invest in yourself and just, you know, it's not that expensive.
Well, what I decided to do, I'm probably going to edit this bit out, is I decided to get a new job and go for a company that actually cares about its employees.
There you go. That's a whole nother topic. By the way, if you've never read, I'm a studier of Project Aristotle by Google. So, you know, Google did 2 big studies. They started with Project Oxygen. Project Oxygen, when they asked the question, of course, Google is all about, you know, data. They asked the question is, do you need managers? So what they did is they did all this data studying about that. They found out, good for us that are managers. Yes, we need managers. And then they began to have characteristics of what made a good manager, right? Now, from that, they thought, okay, then that makes a good team. What makes a good company culture? And it's Project Aristotle, which I would recommend. I'll actually send you. There's a real quick, one page, maybe it's 1 or 2 pages on a website that kind of goes over the ultimate things. But the bottom line is, bottom of the pyramid is psychological safety. You don't have psychological safety, but the rest of them don't matter. Above that is dependability. I can depend on that you're going to do your thing. You can depend on me. Then above that, structure and clarity. There's truly a structure, who does what, okay, and there's clarity of it. It's all understood through the organization. And then I think it's purpose and then meaning. Like, there's a purpose for the work, and then there's meaning to me individually.
Yeah.
Fascinating and spot on. So when you're choosing, to all your fans, all your 156 subscribers, when you're choosing a company, ask questions that show that demonstrate, when you ask the questions at the end of the interview, that demonstrate that. By the way, speaking of questions, remember we were to interview questions. I know we have to wrap up here because I actually have a 10 o'clock, which
what
is
time
for
is
the
it
innovation
there now?
competition. What's 9:57? So I actually
is
have
it?
3
Okay.
minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So favorite interview questions, end of the interview question that I always like to ask, instead of like, oh, what's the culture in this company? So I do product management. I was at Google interviewing with them. What I said to them, I said to the guy, I said, okay, you're in charge of all the product management. You have complete authority and empowerment of all the product management in Google. What would you change? And generally the response I get initially is, whoa, that's a good question, because they don't get it. And then whatever they say is very authentic. It really will give you kind of an idea of what is needs improvement or whatever. And then of course at the end you can say, after they give it, you say, okay, and what would you absolutely keep, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So final finishing thing here. I'm going to ask you my favorite interview question. Let's see if you can answer it in 2 minutes. What is something that you're really, really good at, but you never want to do again?
Oh man, that's a tough one.
It is. And be careful. It's a slippery slope. Make sure you don't mention anything that's in your job description.
No.
But that's your job description.
Does it have to be work related?
Oh no, generally, it's a good question. You can clarify. You can say, generally, if you're doing a job interview, yes, I'd like to know that. But sometimes I'll let it open.
Something that I'm
so
really
you got
good
1
at.
minute.
Okay,
Give me something really quick.
Something that I'm really good at, but probably don't.
Something you're really, really good at, but you never want to do again.
I don't want to teach kids anymore. I don't want to
Love
do
it.
I'm really good.
And on that, we will end. Hey, Paul, enjoyed this, man. We'll have to do it again.
Yeah, definitely. We need more time, and I need to ask you all about your life in Silicone Valley for sure.
Definitely, we'll do that. We'll do that as a second part 2. All right, man. I gotta go.
Okay, buddy.
I'll talk to you soon.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.